I dress the frets and polish the finish this week on Learning Curve. Hello, if you've been following my channel, you know I've been building a Stewmac T-style guitar over the last couple of weeks. Now, I by no means claim to be a master luthier. I'm bringing you along this journey to see if this is something you might want to do. I'm showing you the problems I had. I'm showing you the ways I worked around any issues that came up. I'm showing you what things that they said were easy that are actually difficult, and what things that seem intimidating are actually pretty easy. So if that sounds like something you want to hang out and do, then keep watching. So far I've sanded the body and applied wood grain. I've checked to make sure the frets were leveled, and I hammered them in with a mallet. I sanded the neck, I sanded the body. I've applied multiple layers of spray-on vinyl, blonde lacquer, and then clear lacquer to the body. I've applied multiple layers of lacquer to the neck. I've let everything cure for about 2 weeks. And this week I'm going to show you what I did to finish the neck up. So this week I'm going to remove the lacquer from the frets, I'm going to sand and polish the neck, and I'm going to install the tuning pegs. So the first thing I did with the neck was sand it with 1000 grit sandpaper, then I went down to 1500 grit sandpaper, then I did 2000 grit sandpaper. Now, I live in kind of a small town. I went to a couple of hardware stores and could not find 1000 grit or higher sandpaper. But then I ended up going to an auto parts store, and they no problem. They had 1000, 1500, and 2000. They use it for car finish. So if you're having trouble finding the right sandpaper, maybe take a look at an auto parts store. Also, I believe some of the big box hardware stores do have the higher grits. So basically, I got it down to a semi-gloss finish, I guess is what I would call it. I wiped everything down with mineral spirits in between grits. And I used one of those sponges that they use to get scuff marks off the walls. I use that as a sanding block because it conforms to everything. It works well with the curves and things like that, so I think it does a nice job. Now, before you lacquer, make sure you tape off the nut. I don't know if I said that before. It's in all the instructions you're going to find. Do that. And I did. But everybody else also, everything I saw said, don't worry about the frets. Lacquer them, and then you just remove the lacquer when you're done. I saw a video where a guy used an X-Acto knife. He cut along the frets along the outside and then just lifted off the lacquer in one stroke. It was really cool, and I assumed that's how this was going to go, and that is not how this went at all. This was really time-consuming and difficult. So be it. It is what it is, but it took longer than I expected. What I ended up doing was using the back side of the X-Acto knife to scrape off the lacquer. You can't use the front. It's too sharp and it will dig into the frets and it will cut up the frets and end up causing you problems. So you scrape with the back side of the X-Acto knife. Then I used, I believe, 1000 grit sandpaper, and then like a 1500 grit pad, and then like a 5000 grit pad until I had them polished up and relatively shiny. I think there's more work to be done on these frets, but I'm going to wait till the neck is together to figure out if there's dead spots, what needs to be crowned, what doesn't need to be crowned, etc., etc., etc. But for now, I think I've got most of the lacquer off. And like I said, it was just a little more of a job than I expected, and you do have to be careful not to ruin your frets. So be gentle, be careful, go slow, and good luck. Now, if you've ever tried to change your tuners, sometimes it can be a pain in the butt because the bushings don't necessarily fit into the holes in the headstocks. They're either too big, they're too small, etc., etc., etc. But that was not the case here. These tuners were made for this headstock, so the bushings went in no problem. Then you just screw the tuners into the bushings, and then you put a little screw in the back, and easy peasy. Now, I think one of the things that people, if you're concerned about doing something like this, the concern is the drilling the little hole for the little screw that holds the tuning peg to the headstock. But it's a pretty straightforward process, to be honest with you. You just line everything up so that it's straight. take a magic marker, mark where the holes need to go. Now this is where I think it causes some anxiety if you're not a big woodworker. You need to find the right size drill bit for the screws. And what I do, because a lot of times, like you'll use replacement stuff, whatever. It doesn't always tell you what size drill bit you need to use. So what I like to do is I have this block of wood that I use so much more than I ever expected when I acquired this little block of wood. But one of the things I do with it is I drill holes into the wood with the bit that I think will fit, and then you take the screw, you screw it into the hole. If it fits, that's your bit. If it's too big, you get a smaller bit. Too small, get a bigger bit. No worries. Next thing you do, because you don't want to drill in too far, right? That's the other problem. You don't want to go through the headstock. So how do you know when you've drilled far enough? Take a piece of tape, put the bit next to the screw, tape around on the bit near the head of the screw. And then when you're drilling, once you hit tape, stop drilling. Also drill slowly. You can just kind of give it in spurts. You don't have to go wide open all the way in. That's how you make mistakes. Just take it slow, take it easy. Obviously, if you have a drill press, use a drill press, but I realize not all of us have drill presses. That by no means should stop you from being able to install these tuning pegs. Again, take it easy, take it slow, 90 degrees, you'll be fine. Oh, one last thing. If you're new to a drill, there's a switch on there somewhere that makes the drill go backwards. That way you can back the drill out of the hole, so when you pull it out, you don't rip a bunch of wood out with the drill bit. Again, if you're a big woodworker, you already know that, but if you're new to this, that's something you might not have known. Now you know. Enjoy. All right. The neck is ready for the next phase. I'm really interested to see how good the frets are, but that's going to have to wait until we get everything set up. That's one of the things with these projects, right? You do your groundwork here, and you don't find out how good of a job you did till down here when it shows up. So try to take every step slowly. Try to do a good job on every step. Be patient. So next week I'll show you how glossy I got the finish. And that was also super enlightening for me and super educational. And it turned out great. I'm really happy with it. We'll talk about that next week. Hey, I hope you're doing well. If you like these videos, please subscribe, please like, please share. If you're working on a quarantine build, I'd love to see what you're working on. My name is Spencer Dobson. I just want to thank you for watching Learning Curve. We'll see you next week.